Hi, son.
How you doing, Sarge?
What you call me?
Beg your pardon?
What did you call me, boy?
I called you Sarge.
Before that.
I didn't call you anything before that.
You said, how are you? I'm not a you, boy.
I'm sorry, sir. I meant Utes.
Utes? What's a Utes?
It's not a female sheep, that's for goddamn sure.
Where are you from, boy?
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, sir.
There are only two things that come out of Oklahoma.
Rye and canola oil, sir.
What?
That's what comes out of Oklahoma. We also produce beef and fertilizer, if that's what you were going with this, sir.
I was going to say steers and queers.
I think you'll find queers are everywhere, but sure, we got those and steers.
I don't see any horns on you, so you must be a queer.
No, sir. I can't be a queer.
And why not?
Because a queer would have knocked you the fuck out already, sir.
Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at old movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Ramacka. And today we're discussing An Officer and a Gentleman from 1982 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. And Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. We won't tell you what his OnlyFans is. Please tell your friends about us and leave 5-star ratings everywhere, even the ones that are officer candidates, the ones that are abusive drill instructors, and the ones that leave pregnant women behind to go on and do better things without them. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. And one more thing, we have a guest. Please welcome actress, comedian, singer, and star of A White Woman Overcompensates, Hillary Schwartz.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome back, I think. I think we've had you on before.
No, I think this is my first time. I love that you said singer when I'm a terrible singer, but I love that.
But you were in a band.
Yes, we were the worst band, musically. We had some amusing songs, so.
So, Hillary, why did you pick this film?
I picked this film because I actually love this film. And sometimes what indicates to me what my favorite films are, when I have to get real, is the movies that are on TV and I stop to watch, and I probably watched it like 10 times. Mm-hmm. You know, so I like to say in my head at one point, I'm like, oh, my favorite film, Howard's End, or something really, you know, whatever, very like more highbrow, but I have to be real.
This was on our list.
Yes, and this was on my list, and I love this movie. I've like watched it a million times.
Can I just say something quickly before we get into the history section? I just want to, the cold open, I just want to explain to everyone, I really, really didn't want to go and say anything. Every joke I was thinking of was wildly homophobic, so I decided.
Oh, God.
I so wanted to do take it up the ass jokes. So I thought, oh my God, no, this is homophobic. That'll come off as homophobic. That's why we got the cold open we got.
Jokes are always better after you explain them.
Right. Well, that's perfect also because there's some, if you have maybe what's a little out of time in this movie is some like homophobic stuff. So that's appropriate to mention.
Although it is something we'll get into it, and I assume you got it in there somewhere, George. If not, I'll bring it up. But it's very interesting who actually uses the slur, the F slur, and who doesn't.
Huh.
Yeah. You know, for what it's worth, Joe, I'm proud that you had that cold open go the way it went, because that's better than anything else you had in your head.
You don't want to know what was going on there, buddy.
Nah, you are correct. I don't. So on that note, Joe, take us back to 1982.
1982, a terrible person and worst president, Ronald Reagan, was in the White House. The TV show Cheers premiered that year, a show that would eventually give us the TV show Frasier, which has been rebooted and is back on TV in 2024. The world met the very first recipient of an artificial heart in 1982. The guy's name was Barney Clark, and he would live with his doctor-invented organ for 112 days before dying in 1983 from complications from that very same fake heart.
Look, he's a test pilot. High mortality rate.
Indeed. Do you remember these? You're close to my age, Hillary. Do you remember any of these?
How dare you insult anybody like that, Joe?
No, I think that's a big part of why I like this movie, because I was probably, I guess 11 when it came out. So a lot of things that had an imprint were, around that time. So I do remember, yes, I do remember Ronald Reagan.
Both Diet Coke and the Commodore 64 hit the market for the first time in 1982. The Commodore, the highest-selling single computer model of all time, would cease to exist by 1994 as other superior hardware, like the Macintosh, took over the market.
And because also, after that, computers went through way faster revisions. So, like, the Commodore 64 existed as a thing for a relatively long time, way longer than a single model of any phone exists right now.
Meanwhile, as this movie follows a Navy aviation candidate, let's take a glimpse of what was up with the Navy that year. Now, I did try and find stories out of Washington State, that's where our story takes place, that specifically mentions aviation candidates. As I was searching, I ran across this ad in the Spokesman Review. As always, the news items I mentioned will be in the show's notes. Quoting now, "Aviation training. Make the break. Now's your chance to become one of the world's best trained aviators. Pilot, navigator, maintenance management, positions available. No experience necessary. Excellent pay/benefits package. Worldwide travel. College grads to age 28. Investigate your options by calling Department of the Navy at," and they give a number there. Now, today, you will see the military place help wanted ads like that on job sites all the time, but back in 1982, people's feelings about going to the service was just changing after years of folks not wanting to sign up. As we will learn from this piece I found in the News Tribune. Headline, George.
Depression lets military recruiters pick and choose.
Using the word depression is a little misleading. The economy in the early 80s was pretty bad, but it wasn't 1929 for God's sakes. Still, it was bad and people needed a job, so they enlisted. This was a reversal to the 1970s and the Vietnam War era, when the majority of young people had no interest whatsoever in having anything to do with the armed services. And in fact, according to this article, the only people signed up before this recruitment boom were, and I'm quoting from the article, folks of poor ability, poor performance in uniform, and abnormally high levels of disciplinary problems, end quote. Anything you guys want to add?
One of my suite mates in Nuclear Field A School was actually there because he was ordered by a judge, do that or go to jail.
Ah, so they were still doing it even in the, was this 90-something?
99.
99, yes. Before we get into the movie, I wanted to mention something the film doesn't explore, but is in the background. If you've seen the movie, you know the main female characters want to snag themselves a Navy boy so he can take them out of their humdrum lives. But while that might happen eventually, in the meantime, they are marrying servicemen, and that's not always fun. George, I'm going to read this over, and you can tell me after I'm done how much of this was true when you were in the Navy. But first, read me this headline from the Olympian.
Army wives. Well, that's the Army, Joe. Whatever. Army wives. Nomadic life of military means boredom, hostility.
In this article, they say for some women, being an Army wife, yes, it's not the Navy, but it's all military service, means an existence of pennilessness, nomadism, in a hostile world of ever-changing neighborhoods. Cheryl Hendrick, executive director of ministry for service people, is quoted as saying, "The intensity of their lives, the stress, it's more than typical loneliness. It's the severe loss and deprivation of human support," end quote. And let me just read this chunk, and again, George, you'll let me know if this sounds familiar to you at all.
Okay.
Some wives say they feel surrounded by an aura of hostility as evidenced by anti-military attitudes that prevail outside of the base. Jackie Francisco, 21, says it took her 3 weeks to find an apartment when she and her husband, a Fort Lewis soldier, and their newborn baby arrived in April. They would knock at apartment doors with bold "for rent" signs, only to be told, "Oh, it was just rented," or "the signs were a mistake," she recalled. The husbands feel the hostility too, but have a support system, Ms. Hendricks said. Their sergeant, captain, chaplain, medical system is right there dedicated to them in a way that is not to dependents, end quote. Now, George, you were married while serving. Does this stuff sound familiar to you? Did Laura go through this, do you know?
No, none of that sounds familiar because by the time I was serving, every housing arrangement in the geographic area of every base saw service people as, especially those of us with families, he gets a housing allowance. He has money given to him that he can give to us. So they wanted our money more than they cared about any kind of prejudice against us.
And you don't think your ex had any feelings about, I'm lonely here, or she meant to make friends with other women on the base, or you don't even know?
No, my ex found other ways to not be lonely.
Okay. We're just going to skip right past that. Hillary, do you want to add anything?
Very interesting. I think going to the movie, they were working in a factory, those women. So I can get, even though like the drawbacks of that life, why, dear God, all relative, let me escape this. Even though I'm sure they would have plenty to complain about once they were in that life.
Yeah, I mean, the film seems to imply, and it specifically says, they're going back, they're going on to training. It's not like they're not automatically getting that salary. They're going on to more stuff. And in Florida, Pensacola, Florida, yeah, he says he's going to. So it's not like things are going to be fantastic just yet. But the way the women are responding, they seem to think these guys are going to be in the money just like that. And that's a long way off, even for this particular area of the service, which I assume probably has a higher pay rate than you had when you were in the Navy, right, George?
Yeah.
This guy's going to automatically be like a captain or something like that, right?
He's an ensign at the end of the movie. That's lowest rank of officer.
But once he's done with his service, he's on the track to be captain, isn't he?
Nobody is automatically anything, Joe.
Well, if you're a college graduate, don't they give you a higher thing or higher service quote?
No. If you're a college graduate, that's the baseline for becoming an officer.
Okay, yeah. So let him to officer. Okay, that's where I was going. Okay. George tells about an officer and a gentleman.
Alrighty. So this was directed by Taylor Hackford,
who, for the podcast, we haven't seen anything he directed, but he did produce La Bamba, which we did see.
Why do you do that?
Because we saw La Bamba.
But he didn't direct it. The whole thing is it's his director credit.
But I wanted to mention that we did see La Bamba.
We've both seen his work in Dolores Claiborne, and I've seen his work in The Devil's Advocate.
We should put Dolores Claiborne on the list. That is such a good movie.
We absolutely should.
I also love Devil's Advocate.
Uh-huh.
I never saw it. I don't know.
That sounds like a recipe for Joe to see that movie. This is written by Douglas Day Stewart.
And he also wrote The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Hillary, do you remember that?
Of course, and no wonder I loved it. That was, I think it came on maybe every year, and it was like, felt like an event in my, as far as with my sister and me, and my brother probably. Oh, it was wonderful.
What do you remember? George has no idea what we're talking about.
I have a vague idea of it because, like, they joke about it in other movies.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably how old was I? So in my eyes, I thought it was great. But it was with John Travolta, and his character had some sort of allergies, horrible.
He had an immune deficiency problem.
Yes, immune deficiency. And if he came out of this plastic bubble, he would die, but he develops a romance with this woman, and he finally comes out of the bubble, and they have this meeting. I hope he didn't. I mean, we never saw what happened afterwards, but there was something.
We don't see what happens to him.
But
there's no way he doesn't die. He has.
I know. It was incredibly
immunity deficiency.
Right. It was incredibly romantic. It was like a metaphor of like your walls as a human, and then coming out and accepting and opening your heart. Oh my God! I almost got a little emotional.
No, it was a very romantic movie, complete distortion of the real story. I don't know if you ever saw PBS did a documentary on the real story of the boy in the plastic bubble. First of all, he was not John Travolta's age. He was a kid. I don't think he was any older than 10 or 13 or something.
Hence the word boy.
Right. And Travolta was a full-grown adult in the movie. And needless to say, the boy does not have a romance with a grown-ass woman. And that would be a completely different movie. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, he does die, but he apparently, because of something his sister accidentally did. Because it's hard to keep it in a bubble. He's a child. He's going to want to get out, so.
Right.
That's it. All right, go ahead, George. Finish the resume.
All right, so blurbs. IMDb says, a young man must complete his work at a Navy officer candidate school to become an aviator with the help of a tough gunnery sergeant and his new girlfriend. Whatever. That's fine. Nothing wrong with it. Amazon says, loner Zach Mayo, Richard Gere, enters officer candidate school to become a Navy pilot, and in 13 torturous weeks, he learns the importance of discipline, love, and friendship. Amazon's writing that a bit large.
Well, when you get out, did you learn discipline, love, and friendship?
I never learned any of those things, Joe. You should know this better than anyone.
Oh, believe me, I've noticed.
So the film opens in Seattle, Washington. Our protagonist, Zach Mayo, no known relation to Fern from Jawbreaker, is existing in an apartment where his father, Byron Mayo, lays in bed asleep next to a woman. Zach reminisces, or rather re-experiences, some traumas from his youth. The first being his arrival in the Philippines to live with his father when he was about 12 years old after his mother killed herself. His father is a womanizing drunkard and a bosun's mate first class who doesn't have time to raise a son but has plenty of local ladies to help. The second is Zach bewilderedly wandering the streets, avoiding street vendors. He's taken in by a group of local boys who lure into an Audi and then beat and rob him.
I don't even remember that part.
You know, I forgot that part too. I remember the parts with his dad, but I completely cut out the part of him having the interaction with those boys and that stuff. Yeah, didn't remember that.
I thought, because the beginning I thought was really impactful with his, I mean, I have this indelible memory of the first scene with his dad, and it was very good as far as, you know what I think, and I know this is a bigger statement about the movie, and it is so well written.
Yes, I think so.
And the character development is so well done. And I think it's, maybe easily dismissed if you haven't tried to write something or whatever. But as far as his arc was incredibly felt real.
Well, you're summing it up. We're not there yet.
I know. You see, that's what, okay. You see the little details. That's what I meant. I have these big things to say about it. So feel free to cut that out and get it.
You don't have to cut it out. It's just like, we're getting that. Don't
yes,
we got a whole program to get through. I just want to say, soon as you see the drunken father, nasty as he is to the son, and I saw this, I think, I saw this when I must have been about 15, made me glad I didn't know who my dad was. Another film, like any film that makes me happy, I have no idea who my dad is. I'm always happy with, oh, great. Yeah, imagine my old man was this sort of ass. Jesus Christ, I probably dodged a bullet.
It was also great what he was wearing. He was just a drunk, waking up with this woman in that, like, wife beater, I believe, and, like...
Well, initially, just nothing.
Yes.
And
it's just incredibly, like, okay, very basic, but really, the display of character with just that visual was really good.
Back in the present, he rouses his father and tells him he's leaving to become a naval officer and hopefully a naval aviator. His father is dismissive, but Zach doesn't really care. He's made up his mind. Zach Mayo is played by Richard Gere, who we saw for the show in Pretty Woman, and we've both seen in Chicago.
And I've seen in The Cotton Club and Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
Yeah.
And I've seen in First Night, The Jackal, Runaway Bride, and Unfaithful.
Oh, Unfaithful, yeah.
A terrible movie to have watched while deployed.
There's a big theme in it. I think also why I really enjoy it's another thing growing up in the 80s. Some of my favorite actors are of that era who had their peaks in that era. And come on, he was just attractive. I mean, to watch him I think that really enhances the movie. And he had shirt off a lot. And, that was a whole level that maybe others didn't get, that you all didn't get as far as level of enjoyment. That was...
Well, I definitely wasn't watching for his body. That wasn't my level of enjoyment. You got me there. Did you remember Looking for Mr. Goodbar?
Yes, I saw it a little later. My God, totally depressing. And God, really made me grateful I wasn't promiscuous. You were just going to die. You're just going to die.
George, you don't know this. There was a movie called Looking for Mr. Goodbar starring Diane Keaton, made in the 70s. It was based on a real story of this teacher who picked up this dude and wound up getting stabbed to death by him. Evidently, the guy couldn't get it up, and so he murdered her, because that's what you do when you can't get an erection.
Okay.
And so...
Now we know why you're not married.
And so it was a huge news story at the time. and they made us a movie out of it.
Oh, it was a great reference for some reason. Like, we always made it as a reference of, like, you don't want to turn into Looking for Mr. Goodbar. I mean, it was one of those that had, like...
Yeah, exactly. Although it was weird. On the one hand, the movie doesn't slut shame her, but at the same time, the implication is, if you're one of these girls who go out and sleep around, you're going to get yourself killed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Two-edged sword there. But anyway, let's credits with the credits.
And Byron Mayo is played by Robert Loggia,
whom I've seen in Lost Highway, Prince's Honor, and Scarface.
And I've seen in Big, and we've both seen in Independence Day.
Mm-hmm. He's been in a lot. He's very good.
Yep. Zach shows up in Seattle, Washington, to his officer training program. He arrives on a motorcycle because, if we're to believe the movies, that's what all Navy pilots drive.
That's true. Do you think he and Tom Cruise's character would have gotten along from Top Gun?
No, they'd have killed each other. The crop of new recruits line up to be verbally abused by Sergeant Emil Foley in all of the ways we wouldn't allow for today because we are a slightly better society. Among these are Sid Worley, who will become Zach's best buddy, and Casey Seeger, the lady of the group. Sergeant Emil Foley is played by Louis Gossett Jr.,
whom I first saw in Raisin in the Sun. Something I completely forgot until I saw the credits. Oh my God, that is the first place I've ever seen him. I also saw him in The Landlord. I don't know if you remember that picture, Hillary, with Jeff Bridges.
Wow.
They played it all the time on TV. Roots, obviously. The Choir Boys. I went back and saw some of the trailers for that. Yikes. That was a terrible movie.
So it should go on the list, right?
It's about cops in L.A. seeking to burn off steam. So they do this by harassing women and beating up people. So it was basically based on real life. Anyway, and I also saw him in the Josephine Baker story. And the last thing I saw him in, Watchmen in 2019.
I love how in this movie, and probably his name's not mentioned a lot, but does anyone remember his character name from this movie? It's always just, the sergeant, and more often, then Louis Gossett Jr. came on screen. It's like I feel like I've only referred to him while talking about this movie as if his character's name was Louis Gossett Jr.
I think you'll find most people refer to the actor when they're talking about the character.
Yes.
I think we all do that.
That's probably true, yeah.
I mean, I just said Tom Cruise. That's not Tom Cruise's name in Top Gun.
So true. Yes. Yeah, then Richard Gere did this, and exactly.
Right, yeah.
Not for nothing. Towards the end of the movie, Richard Gere's character yells "motherfucker" at Louis Gossett Jr.'s character, and Louis Gossett Jr.'s character is Sergeant Emil Foley. What the for TV dubbing is it has him yelling "Emil." Which, if you remember how he reacts to that, he goes, "What did you call me?" Which makes sense if somebody just called you motherfucker. Makes a lot less sense if somebody just used your first name.
Well, they are a military service. You can't call him by his first name.
Yes, you can. It happens. And you don't react like somebody just called you a motherfucker. Sid Worley is played by David Keith, who I've seen in 2 different Navy movies, U-571 and Men of Honor, because apparently he's got one job in life, and that's play sailors.
Yeah.
And Casey Seeger is played by Lisa Eilbacher, who I've seen in The Last Samurai, and we've both seen in Beverly Hills Cop.
Which I'm shocked. I did not realize that was a lady in Beverly Hills Cop. Completely did not recognize her. Not at all.
Yeah, I kind of Googled some things about the movie. She's now a brunette. Isn't that an interesting detail?
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating.
George, before we go any further, I know you weren't verbally abused like that, but did any of that seem familiar to you when you first got off the bus or whatever you got off of when you met your recruiter or sergeant, whatever it is?
So I had this moment in boot camp where I was talking to my RDCs, or recruit division commanders, my drill instructors. And I said, look, I know it's your job to break us down and stuff. And they stopped me and said, we don't have time to break you down. We have to turn you into sailors. That means we have to teach you a whole lot of stuff. So no, I did not have this experience.
Well, okay. What were you going to say to him, though, before he stopped you?
I can't remember. Whatever it was, it didn't matter anywhere near as much as that little nugget of wisdom.
Well, good. I'm glad to see that the Navy has changed. since 1982.
Yeah, that makes sense. You do have we have a big agenda here. We don't have time to call you.
Yeah, my boot camp was 9 weeks.
Yeah. I love how the insult, and it's kind of the way he said it was so deriding, but mayonnaise, as if that's such an of all the insults in the world. I don't know what to play on his name.
Yeah, tell Joe that. He got a lot of mileage out of that in Jawbreaker.
Did I?
Yeah, everybody in this movie is mayonnaise.
Oh, yes. Well, not everybody. Lou Gossett isn't mayonnaise.
No, that's what you said in Jawbreaker.
Oh.
Does that have a meaning I'm not aware of?
White people.
White and
That's
boring.
what I figure. Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Very slow, but that I did run through my mind.
Okay.
I'm not that dumb, because it was it is white, right?
Oh, do I love mayonnaise? I think it's delicious, actually.
You should see his friend group.
Very good. Very good.
No, that's funny.
Then it's the obligatory boot camp haircut scene where the guys are shocked that their heads are being shaved. Yes, that did happen.
Were you shocked?
I was not.
How come guys just don't get their hair cut before they go to camp?
Because you're trying to get laid up to the minute that you leave for boot camp.
Okay. No one liked short hair back in your day?
Nobody likes shave. I mean, some people had shaved heads, but most people didn't.
Oh, interesting. Well, it was a critical scene in the movie. You don't want to not see their heads being shaved.
I don't think I've ever seen a military movie where they don't have at least one scene where the hair is being shaved. That's like a rite of passage in all these pictures.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I must say, as going back to enjoying Richard Gere, he has amazing hair, and you think it's oh my God, it's a tragedy. It's being cut. And then you're like, whoa, a crew cut works too.
We leave the training grounds for a moment to meet Paula Pokrifi and Lynette Pomeroy, who will become the love interests of Zach and Sid. They leave their job at the local paper factory and drive to the base, changing clothes in the car to drop something off with the base commander's wife. Lynette Pomeroy is played by Lisa Blount, and Paula Pokrifi is played by Deborah Winger,
whom we've seen for the podcast in Terms of Endearment. And I've seen in Rachel Getting Married, and Thank God It's Friday, the first movie I ever saw in the theaters.
Oh, I love Terms of Endearment. I really liked her at that time. Not that that's very interesting. And she kind of peeked in. And she's so pretty, but she wasn't heavily.
She wasn't
fake.
blockbuster gorgeous,
Yes.
the kind that you put on posters in young men's rooms.
She's a normal,
but she was
attractive
girl next door pretty.
Right, and I think that was part of the appeal for me. Not only she's a great actor, but yes.
Well, she's still around.
Right.
Stop it in the past tense. She's still alive.
She is still alive, but we were kind of
Unlike Logia.
in an era where you didn't have to be, drop dead. You can actually have somewhat. I mean, she's very attractive, but you can have a little more normal women in NB.
I'm glad you said that, because I meant to say this earlier. This is a 70s movie that came out in 1982. This is very 70s. Anyway, I'm sorry. And I wasn't done with the credits. We also saw her in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. She had a small part in that.
Yeah. So, the recruits are sent to their living quarters, 4 to a room, with 2 bunk beds each. Zach, Sid, Topper Daniels, and Perriman are assigned together. Zach gets there first and steals a top bunk from Daniels, then tells Perriman that nobody's allowed to swap. Asshole.
Did you do that in the military?
Nope. Topper Daniels is played by David Caruso.
Oh.
Who I've seen in Kiss of Death.
And I've seen in First Blood, and we've both seen in Twins, the movie with Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a sperm milkshake.
Wow.
I thought that was David Caruso when I first saw him. I thought, wow, could that be? He's so young. Mm-hmm. But he is also some CBS crime show he was constantly.
CSI, I think.
CSI, yeah.
He was in NYPD Blue. Oh, yeah, then he went on to CSI when he moronically
He was in NYPD Blue, that's right, yeah.
Left it after one season.
NYPD Blue, the show they made a big deal out of because you got to see male ass and that they said the F word a lot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Perriman is played by Harold Sylvester, who I saw in A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich. A very old movie from the 70s.
Yeah, that's a really interesting title, though. I like that title.
Oh, well, we should put it on a list. If we can find it. I don't even know if it's even streaming anywhere.
Casey, Sid, and Zach are out of formation for some punitive push-ups, and the boys notice the pair of ladies, who assure them that their hair will grow at least an inch before they get any time off. The next scene, like a lot in this film, at least in the beginning, is standard boot camp miserable exercise stuff. They're running, doing obstacle courses, singing lewd cadence songs, and generally being verbally abused. Zach is a shrewd dude and has a connection with an enlisted guy who provides pre-shined shoes and belt buckles that Zach sells to his bunkmates for inspections. Then we see more physical training, this time of the obstacle course, where Cadet Seeger, on account of her having a vagina, has problems with friction when trying to climb a wall using an anchored rope.
Are you saying that's the reason they wanted to give her a problem and they decided to be the wool? I don't think it was because...
I have this scripted to say later, but I'll just say it here. Lisa Albacher said the hardest part of playing this role was pretending that she was out of shape. Because she is a bodybuilder. Like, she works out religiously. Oh. She is incredibly fit and had to pretend not to be for this movie.
Well, she's also pretending to be in the military. I mean, she's acting.
Yeah.
You know, and even as, like, very pro-women, I went with that. Even though, listen, for the military, women are going to be, you know, an exceptional shape. But the reason I kind of went with that, even though it seems insulting to women, is that she actually was very good physically. It really was the climbing the wall. And in reality, that made sense to me. And I wasn't so insulted because women, just biologically, do not have the same upper body strength.
Yeah.
Now, that may be unrealistic for, you know, military, but that's just a true thing. And that if she's going to have any weakness, it was going to be that.
What annoyed me about it was that her feet kept slipping off the wall, as if her lack of upper body strength meant her shoes no longer had traction.
Yeah, good, very good point. Oh. Yeah.
It's like in The Office when the gun goes off next to Andy's head and Daryl's taking him to the hospital. He's like, why are you limping? That kind of thing. No upper body strength, but your feet won't stick to the wall.
Yes.
Since we're on the topic of women in general here,
No, nobody wants to marry you, Joe. I'm sorry.
Thank you. The lack of misogyny, unless maybe you guys picked it up and I went over my head, but there's surprisingly, I mean, yes, there's something questionable thing that goes on later, but to her anyway, they don't sexually harass her.
No.
There's no hazing of her.
No, she's in the same boat as them. And my boot camp division was a mixed gender division. We had separate barracks, but we came together for exercise and stuff. And they were just our shipmates. Like, they were the people with us doing the same shit. You don't have time to let any of that shit come to the surface. And if you do, you're going to have 1,000 people smacking you upside the head for it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big appeal because I found the same thing. I really, appreciated that she was, just part of the, she was a buddy.
So Sid catches Zach buying his pre-shined wares from his connection. Zach makes a deal with him that if Sid helps him pass aerodynamics, he can have all the pre-shined stuff he wants for free. A little over a month in, the Navy throws a little ball for the recruits. Paula and Lynette are officially introduced to Zach and Sid by the base commander's wife so that a proper pair of meet-cutes can occur. As one might expect at such an event, there is dancing, drinking, flirting, and lots of talking.
If I'm introduced to someone, is that really a meet-cute?
Yes, because they actually met.
Yeah, but I thought meet cute it had to be a cute meeting. That's not really cute.
I don't think it necessarily has to be cute.
Then why is it called that?
But also, everything is cute to somebody.
You're not cute to me.
Usually in movies, it's like a serendipity thing, and then, more than like a setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So later that night, Sid and Lynette get busy in her car.
You sure this is okay?
Don't worry. I'll respect you in the morning.
You're crazy, girl. You respect me.
All right, I got to comment on the song.
Okay, go for it.
Great song, and I didn't realize, maybe I became more of a Van Morrison fan later, but a little 70s too. More of a 70s, fantastic. I mean, I don't know. I'm just gushing about this movie. Probably people are going to be like, why do you Like, what do you, like, what's wrong with you?
You can gush. We don't...
This is like, right. It's like, this is like, do you do love Apocalypse Now? No. Do you love like these? Whatever. No.
This is
no.
not Apocalypse
But,
Now,
like,
for God's sake.
But an officer and a gentleman.
You did not want to see Marlon Brando with his shirt off in Apocalypse Now.
No, you didn't.
No,
he is no Richard Gere. Not at all.
No, except for a certain period in time before he went crazy on the ice cream.
Zach and Paula go down to the beach, which I will never understand because I don't understand how you do that without getting sand everywhere. Everywhere.
Noted.
Hold on. And they're in Seattle?
Yep.
Yes.
Maybe I never realized that. And they're on the beach.
Mm-hmm. You can have a beach in Seattle. It's allowed.
I guess they do. There's
Navy bases tend to be near water.
Yes, thank you. You're making so much sense. It's all coming together.
The Air Force happens to be wherever there's air. The next day, Foley brings the recruits into a hangar where a martial arts training platform is set up. He volunteers Daniels to get up there with him. After Daniels expresses doubt that Foley is allowed to even put his hands on him, Foley takes him down and starts to choke him out as an object lesson in this all just sucks, don't expect it not to.
Now, I assume you also didn't get that in Days of Training.
Nope. No, we didn't do hand-to-hand combat.
Huh.
And our weapons training was with demilitarized M16s. We played laser tag with stationary targets.
Maybe you wouldn't lose that much hand-to-hand combat in the Navy.
No, this is past the days of boarding via ropes and with knives in your teeth.
Yeah.
And terms like me hearties.
So wait a minute. I'm sorry. That makes me wonder, why did they have a weight thing then if they didn't care if you were in shape or not?
They care if you're in shape, not if you can fight. There's other reasons to be in shape, Joe.
No, you got to get in shape to fight. That's the main thing.
You have to be in shape to, like, run up and down the stairs in a plant. You have to be in shape to be able to wear firefighting equipment down in a space that's on fire and hot. Like, you have to be in shape for a lot of shit.
But not fighting.
Not fighting.
Okay.
Just didn't expect to do a lot of that. At night, the protagonists all meet up in another local bar. They very quickly decide to go to a motel, but have to get past the menacing locals to do so. The locals are not fans of how the officer recruits show up for a couple of months and then steal all their women.
This, I can tell you, I was never in the military, but this whole idea of guys coming to town and blah, 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 stealing our women, boy, was that, it may still be, but it's definitely back in the 80s. I definitely remember people talking exactly like that. It wasn't necessarily for military stuff, but any sort of interracial dating or immigrants, everything was our jobs. And look, when I say our, I mean white people said this.
Yeah, of course.
Our jobs, our women, you know, our city, everything was taken from them. Anytime anybody of a different color showed up, it was always somehow being taken from them.
Yeah, the townies is they're the townies, I guess is what you call them. And they're often appear in movies. I mean, I've never seen a townie in life, but I've seen them in many movies.
Did you not? Where did you go to college?
NYU.
Oh.
Yeah, there weren't many townies.
I was going to say, if you went to Syracuse or something, there are townies all over the place, but yeah, at NYU, no.
The locals stealing our women.
Quick, possibly true story. When Naval Nuclear Power Training Command was moved to Goose Creek, South Carolina, the pregnancy rate at Goose Creek High School may or may not have tripled. There's reason to believe that moving a military training facility anywhere near a population center will be good for both that population center's economy and its population growth.
Are you saying the soldiers went off base and knocked up the high schoolers?
The 19-year-olds? Yes, I'm saying that happened. Because we were 19.
Oh, so you were included in this group?
I didn't knock anybody out in town up.
Not that time, anyway.
You don't think?
That wasn't until prototype, and then I married her.
As far as you know.
Yeah, as far as you know.
I didn't have, I was not that popular. Those locals follow the four out of the bar and try to pick a fight. Zach beats the ever-living crap out of one of the locals, which makes the rest of them think twice. Mm-hmm. That martial arts training class wasn't long enough for him to kick ass like that, so I'm guessing he learned that on the streets in the Philippines.
Yeah, I think that's what the flashback was for, to show us like, after those kids beat him up.
He already knew how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, presumably his dad probably said, well, we're going to teach you how to fight because that's not going to happen again to my son. He seems like he would be that type of dad.
He already knew wrist control.
Right, and once again, you never want... I'm not for violence, but a guy who can take on townies and knock them out, pretty attractive.
That comes in handy.
Just draw that blood,
It's a panty dropper.
Something very appealing.
This is not a James Bond movie, so violence does not necessarily immediately become fuel for sex. In fact, that fight messes with Zach's mojo, and he becomes a toxic asshole for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, Zach, it wouldn't kill you to open up to me a little bit.
What do you want? You want to fuck? Is that what you want? You want to fuck? All right, come here. Get on the bed, take your clothes off. Give you a good fuck.
Where's that coming from?
Good question, Paula, because you should open up to me does not translate into you want to fuck. That's not, like, even if you're in a fucking bad headspace, that's not where you go with that.
Well, that was...
I don't think that was good writing.
Actually, I think it... Oh, my God. All I'm going to do is defend this movie. Like, I'm like... Well, because that's what goes back to his childhood. And he was just utterly traumatized and closed off. And so I don't know. Maybe I just got to look at him and I'm like,
Well, I wasn't checking him out and I thought it was good writing.
I know, I thought that was, yes. And I think because it goes, they already planted that as far as his emotional cutoff from his upbringing.
He's going to grow. So initially, we're going to first see him. He's a dick. We see where some of that dickishness comes from with his dad, and then his growing up in, I guess, the Philippines, and probably being moved all across the world with his old man, having all sorts of unhappy adventures with kids who he just meets, and then whatever bond he has is taken away from him, and then suddenly his dad leaves, and his mom has some sort of breakdown and kills him.
Right, and he has to be in a very close place to make that, a significant character arc.
Right.
When Paula goes to leave, he gets himself sorted and they enjoy the rest of their evening. Somehow. In the morning, Paula makes Zach breakfast. They have a short, mature discussion about what their expectations are for their relationship.
Paula. I try real hard not to fool anybody about who I am, what I want.
I know who you are and what you want.
And what do you want?
I want to have a good time until you have to leave.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Then they have sex again because why not?
Why not indeed?
It's interesting because that is like a contradiction. She wants him to open up, but then I think she's lying. She just is.
Well, no, I don't think it's a contradiction. I think you can open up and be intimate with somebody and know that your relationship has an expiration date.
Oh, you see, I don't get relationships very much. Oh, that is how they
relationships are my freaking bag.
Maybe you could train.
This is the man going through a divorce.
Yeah, I'm going through a divorce because I understand relationships, and I understood that one wasn't going to work anymore.
This scene, and this is a weird fixation, I think it's because I really like food, but I was really clued in on the eggs, and I was like, I couldn't stop looking at the eggs.
She was burning those eggs.
And they looked, and he's like, good, they look really good, and I think, oh my God, those eggs look awful. And there's no toast. I mean, I think they're overdone. There's nothing with it, no potatoes. And it just seemed like it was, I know there are sad parts of the movie coming up, but it was among the most sad parts for me were those sad eggs.
Okay. That's what you got out of that scene. All right.
I'm with you, Hill. The next training exercise is the Dilbert Dunker, an aquatic crash simulator that inverts the cockpit in a way that disorients the trainee. Zach and Casey pass with no problems. Daniels, however, panics and has to be resuscitated once he's extracted from the pool. He is this crop of recruits' first DOR, or drop on request. Basically, he quits the program. After this, Foley does a surprise inspection in the barracks. Perryman can't seem to get his buckle shiny enough, and Zach doesn't supply free product from his shiny buckle stock. This ends up not mattering, because what Foley is really there to do is expose Zach's scheme.
It's something that I realized, and this is only after I saw the movie, that for all of Zach's questionable behavior, he's selling stuff, interestingly enough that he never sells any drugs or takes any. Which I would think that'd be something he would get in trouble. The character to me strikes me as someone who would do that, but maybe, I guess not. Maybe he has a discipline to not get involved in that.
Well, I think that's a harder thing to get into on a military base. You need to have different kind of connections. You can find any enlisted, because any base is going to be crawling with enlisted people doing the menial work. So you can find one to slip some money to provide you with shit.
Right.
But drugs are a different risk factor.
And then that would take the movie into a whole other place, and suddenly it's Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah. Or the 9 people that got busted in Naval Nuclear Power School in an ecstasy ring.
I'm sorry, what?
9 people got busted at Naval Nuclear Power School in an ecstasy ring.
Was that when you were attending, or was after you
Yeah.
graduated? Huh. An ecstasy ring. Ooh.
Yep.
Was this Annapolis or was this somewhere else?
No, this is Goose Creek, South Carolina.
Okay. Of course.
It was not an office. While the rest of the crew gets their weekend liberty, Foley makes Zach his weekend project. It's your standard boot camp punishment, make them exercise in the mud type of thing. This has the intended effect of breaking Zach down to a point where he's willing to start following orders or whatever.
I ain't gonna quit! All right, then you can forget it. You're out! Don't you do it! Don't you! I got nowhere else to go! I got nowhere else to go!
Ladies and gentlemen, while that clip was playing, George was acting out the role of Richard Gere as Zach Mayo in An Officer and a Gentleman.
Amazing moment.
He looked so pathetic. Like, it's a good job of acting because he was pathetic and he looked pathetic.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
I liked when he was on a point of tears and he tries to hold it back, although you can tell he really wants to cry at that moment. No, it's a terrific, powerful scene.
I say following orders or whatever. I've been through boot camp and I've seen more than my fair share of boot camp scenes and shit. So I'm like over the trope by now, but it was well acted and well written. When the other recruits come back from their liberty, Zach is cleaning the stairs to the barracks with a toothbrush. When Perryman gets back to the room, he sees 3 brand new shiny belt buckles in his locker because Zach knows the value of teamwork now or something. Zach and Paula have some intimate banter before he lets loose with his mother having downed a bottle of pills without leaving a note. Not that Paula recoils or anything, it's just kind of a mood killer.
They're talking. They're having a moment.
He's opening up to her.
Yes.
They both exchange offers to go get a towel, and then neither of them gets a towel.
Oh.
They like lying in it.
Which means a mess is being made throughout that scene.
Right.
I just want to point that out.
They're growing, but not enough for housework.
Yeah. On the ferry, Paula and Lynette have a conversation in which Lynette signals that she might just be willing to trap a candidate into marrying her. Paula is dead set against it. This film is pre-Bechdel test, and it shows.
That's true. They don't talk about anything other than men. That's true. You're right. Although, in fairness, that is what they're focused on.
Yeah.
They want a man who's from this Navy thing. So it's not like...
Oh, no.
He even mentions to her, I think maybe in that scene when he's talking about his mother, where he says to her, you could get into the military too. You could join the program. She says, no, it's not really for me. So
yeah, this just makes you like Deborah Winger even more because she has, a moral compass.
Oh, is that what you got? Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's a great contrast with her friend,
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, as far as differentiator and, but solid writing. Just basic solid writing.
See, I thought you were talking about the towel again.
I don't, yeah. I was more, I wasn't fixated on the towel. I was more about the bad food.
Then Zach has dinner with Paula and her whole family. Her father keeps giving Zach the stink eye and never says why. The conversation foreshadows that the next couple of weeks of training are the toughest for him. Esther Puck Rifke is played by Grace Zabriskie,
whom I've seen in Drugstore Cowboy.
And I've seen in Armageddon and Gone in 60 Seconds. Outside, Paula explains that the dad in there is not her real father. Her real father was an officer candidate who knocked her mom up and then left. That's why her now dad doesn't think very highly of officer candidates.
I don't know if I saw this movie. Maybe I'm hungry all the time. But I'm like, why is no one eating this food? I mean, it looks pretty good. And they're all...
He said the chicken was good.
Yeah, he's like, this is delicious. He's eating, but he hasn't eaten. Like, why aren't you? And then no one else is eating. And they're like, really? But I mean, finally, you have something other than horrific eggs, and no one's freaking eating.
In the break room at the paper mill, one coworker sows some hate and discontent about officer candidates dating locals, while Paula experiences Zach avoiding her phone call as he leaves to go on liberty. Her mom stops her from running off after him, saying that in the emotional state she's in, she will do anything, including the things to trap them, that she said she didn't want to do. At dinner with Sid and his parents, Zach learns that Sid has a fiancé back home. What's more, that fiancé was Sid's dead pilot's brother's fiancé. Sid says that Lynette is the best head in 52 states. For the record, there are only 50 states.
Yeah, we only have 50 states, and she's great in 52. Get it?
I had an uncle that I had to convince we only had 50 states. He thought we had 50 and then got Alaska and Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
I made him count the stars on the flag.
And I think this is why, I mean, there are many, many reasons. They're not going to make D.C. a state, Puerto Rico. And you know why? Because there's something amazing about the number 50. How do you move from 50 into a great number?
You'd have to remake all of the pre-printed stickers and shit with the American flag on it.
Oh, yeah, it's just a pain
because they'd all have the
ass.
wrong number of stars. Yeah.
I am confident, unless we go fascist, I'm confident D.C. will become a state within the next decade, and probably Puerto Rico.
I'm not. For political reasons, it just is.
If
they're going to be democratic
cutlery
states
and
they
napkin
want
reasons.
that, and it's a big burden to be a state too. Yeah, I know it's messed up. I'm from DC, so it's really messed up. Their voting situation, it's totally messed up. But it would be 51, and no one wants 51. 50.
They'll make it 52. Do Puerto Rico.
Yeah, better.
No, but I do think. The only reason it hasn't happened yet is because we had them. Oh, well, we're not going to go down that road. My point is, I just think that the demographics, I believe, leans towards that eventually happening. That's all I got to say on that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what this movie's about.
And Zach starts to realize that he may actually be in love with Paula. Later that night, Zach, Casey, and some others are at a local bar called TJ's that they hadn't been to before. Zach spots Paula out on a date with someone else. He catches up to her at the jukebox and they have some small talk. She leaves with her date and Zach seems all kinds of out of sorts.
She's following the rules, that book, before it was even out. Good move.
In a lesser movie, he would have gotten into a fight with that guy.
Yep.
Guaranteed. There would have been some sort of altercation, some nonsense, some toxic masculinity stuff. Doesn't happen. And
she still would have taken him afterwards.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, the idea that would have turned her on even more.
Meanwhile, Sid and Lynette have just finished doing each other. Sid notices that Lynette should be on her period by now. Fucking aware Sid, right?
Yeah.
13-week fucking boot camp training thing. The first 4 weeks he didn't know her and he's got her cycle down. Fucking get this guy developing tracker apps.
I never even knew my cycle that well.
The idea that she could be pregnant puts Sid squarely in the I'm responsible for everything mode. Lynette isn't asking for that. Then it's the final obstacle course. Zach goes into it with an idea that he's going to set the all-time record. However, Casey has been having problems getting over the rope wall. Zach goes back to the rope wall to do that beside her while motivating her to complete it, careful not to put his hands on her or help her physically. And with his encouragement, she gets over the wall and completes the course.
It, just a great character growth moment. Just very solid. And there are a couple things in this movie, I'll get to the other, that okay, you hear it should be really cheesy, or you think that kind of moment, but because I think this movie is so well written, it earns it. And I'm almost getting chills remembering it. I was really moved by
I think the scene works, sure.
Yeah.
At lunch, Sid conveys to Zach that he is convinced that Lynette is pregnant and intends to marry her. Zach thinks Sid takes too much responsibility on himself and thinks Sid should encourage Lynette to get an abortion.
Which, by the way, wasn't that interesting? Just a great, just get an abortion. There was no oh my God, we have to debate this or whatever. And isn't it amazing? We live in a time in which that right is now gone. We're now past abortion rights. Isn't that wild?
Yep.
Well, talk about I never had an abortion because I was never that popular.
The thing is,
that's a great quote.
More rights than other people born.
I had to get that in.
Earlier.
One of their final exercises is an oxygen deprivation drill, where the candidates are in a room tasked with doing things requiring concentration, while the oxygen concentration in the room drops. During the exercise, Sid wigs out and has to be forced on oxygen. Sid realizes he's only in this program because he wanted to replace his brother and the DORs. Zach sees him walking out with Foley in civilian clothes and assumes that Foley kicked him out after his freakout in the O2 chamber. Sid admits to having dropped himself out of the program and runs off. Zach runs after him but doesn't catch him, somehow. Sid buys a ring and proposes to Lynette. She tells him that she's not pregnant, and she won't marry him because she wanted to marry an aviator, dammit, to live abroad with. Sid is understandably heartbroken and checks into the motel and room that he used to stay with Lynette in. In front of the clerk, he swallows the engagement ring.
Mm-hmm.
You know what this means? This shows you. You get the proposal first, then you buy the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, but the ring tasted better than the eggs. Obsessed with this. Obsessed with the eggs.
Unable to locate Sid, Zach goes to Paula's house and enlists her help. They interrogate Lynette and find out what happened. Zach uses some unnecessary misogynistic language during this conversation. Zach and Paula show up at the motel and, in Sid's room, find that he has hanged himself in the bathroom with his belt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, sad moment.
Sad moment. Although it would have been more powerful if it used the towel they used to clean themselves earlier.
Uh-huh.
Different character, Joe.
I know.
Okay.
He could have gotten a hold of it. It's in the same hotel. They use the same hotel. The guy
Or if it turned out that the one guy from Gleaming the Cube had strangled him.
Yes, that would have been good too.
That was the movie I just finished editing the episode for.
Gleaming the Cube. She has no idea what we're.
I know.
No one knows that movie.
Down by the water, Zach has some issues to work through. For one, he makes every suicide about him. And then there's this.
I love you. I've loved you since I met you. Don't you understand?
No! I don't want you to love me. I don't want anyone to love me. I just want out.
I kind of wanted to splice in Michael Scott going, I understand nothing. Zach shows up back on base, finds Sergeant Foley with his platoon, and not so respectfully requests a one-on-one conversation. This escalates until Zach and Foley are in a fight on the martial arts training pad. Zach actually seems to have the upper hand until Foley kicks him square in the balls, then leaves it up to Zach whether or not he wants to stay in or quit. Which, no, you don't do that. If you kick him in the balls, now you're fucking out, asshole.
He doesn't want to throw him out, though. And he knows he's emotionally upset about his friend whose body he found committing suicide. If anything, he should have had time off. Isn't that what they... Well, maybe not in 82, but I would imagine today. You find someone's dead body, especially someone who's a friend of yours, they're going to have you in some sort of psychological thing, won't they?
What I see is he caught up to Foley and his platoon, not with them. So he was not where he was supposed to be. He was AWOL. That's disciplinary.
I presumed he was off during that time. That's the only reason
I presume nothing of the kind, sir.
I couldn't figure it out why he wasn't there with them. They didn't seem to mind.
He was a loose cannon, so maybe him and fucking Maverick would have gotten along.
I have a very important question regarding this and the things that I'm paying attention to, which you all are not. They both
the
take
eggs
off.
And the towel.
Yes, and they both take off and, these men's bodies.
They take off their shirts, you're saying?
Yes. And, okay, that was a good moment. But is that what people do? Is that what men do when they fight like that? Or in that, or was that just...
If they fight like those guys are doing, then probably yes. But obviously in a street or bar fight, you're not taking your shirt off.
Is that
off, bud.
Is that so they don't grab by the shirt?
Well, partially that and partially so you don't get blood on your friggin' uniform. Because blood's hard to get out.
Oh, of course. I'm not like the stupid... I'm usually not this dumb of a human being.
You're not dumb.
I guess I don't know about these things. Why wouldn't I? But I didn't even think... Okay. Well, eye candy. Why not?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a win-win that way. They don't get blood on their uniform and you get eye candy.
Didn't they have no shoes on? Is that what they do?
They take shoes off, yeah.
Hey, take your shoes off.
In that kind of ring.
Yeah, if you're fighting, if you're doing a martial arts thing, you take your shoes off. Because your shoes are going to slow your feet down.
Okay, so we've established things I don't really know a lot about. I don't know much about the Navy. I don't know about martial art fighting. And I don't know about relationships.
You do know about eggs.
I know. I don't cook. at all, I know how to make scrambled eggs. So if they're not done right, I'm sorry. I get I'm like violent. It's like a huge reaction. I'm like angry.
Zach does decide to graduate and gets to do so with the rest of his platoon. They take their oaths and are now naval officers, all holding the rank of ensign. And in what is apparently tradition, they all get to walk up to Foley and give him a silver dollar in exchange for their first salutes from him. Zach lingers a little to thank him extra, and Foley puts his coin in his right breast pocket, which is apparently a sign that Zach was some kind of really special guy.
Mm.
And as Zach leaves the base for the last time, he observes Foley breaking in the newest crop of officer candidates, using a lot of the same abusive, misogynist, homophobic language that he used earlier in the movie. And seemingly out of nowhere, given the last things that Zach said to Paula, he shows up at the paper mill and literally sweeps her off of her feet. The end.
Way to go, Paula! Way to go!
Oh my
We're all
God.
happy for you!
First of all,
We're going to be down a person on this shift now!
She just had to tell her mom, make sure they send my check to wherever it is I'm going. Or send it to you. We'll get it later.
Amazing ending.
My final check.
I almost want to cry now thinking about the graduation. Louis Gossett Jr. moment of acting is phenomenal. As far as
got an
his,
Oscar
like,
for it.
many, but that moment where he's like moved by him, but like keeping it very stoic is great. As far as how well written and how well acted this, and let me go back to the writing. I mean, I think it's probably very underestimated as far as writing, but how cheesy would that scene when you like, what do you mean he's going to go in and sweep her off their feet and she's going to put his like, you're like, are you kidding me? But it's so well done that for me, and I think for obviously a lot of people, it's a very beloved movie, it worked. How does that movie had to be that good for that scene to like, oh my God, it works. And maybe it's like, I guess I'm I don't know. I'm a romantic at heart.
I may be too.
It's a romantic movie.
It's a very romantic movie. George, you asked me, what is the last movie I cried at? I cried at this at the end of this. I'd seen it before.
Yes.
I'd seen the movie before, and I still teared up at the end.
Totally.
When he sweeps her off his feet. I'm a romantic too, I guess. I don't care. I know it's cliche. I know it's ridiculous. Yeah, he just comes in and picks her up. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't care. I love it.
It works. They earned that moment. And,
See,
love lifts us up where we belong. And like everything on paper would be like, are you kidding me? You're going with this scene. And it's like, it sings. It flies.
To be fair, though, this was made in 1982, so it probably seems it could be a lot more cliche today than it was at the time. This is at the end of the 70s where, they didn't make films quite like this.
Well, no.
I don't know. So we're getting into the conclusions now, and
yes,
I think I know where you guys stand. So I'll start off here. Like my high point was him helping Seeger get over the wall. Mm-hmm. That's where my was woohoo, and then everything else was just downhill for me. And then the more it went downhill, the more like emotionally I'm just making the jerk off motion. Like, are you fucking kidding me? They're fighting, kick him in the balls, really? And then this last scene, like the last thing he said to her should have been interpreted by her as, "Oh, he needs fucking therapy. Stay the hell away from him." And like, he is not a safe person to be in a relationship with. He is wildly volatile emotionally and needs to go through some heavy therapy and be medicated in order to be happy.
well, hold on. He's never violent with her. He's not violent with anybody until he's in a fight, and he's in a fight when, he's provoked.
There's other kinds of violence other than physical, Joe.
And he's not particularly, he's gruff with her, but he's not abusive. His misogynist language he says for the other woman, he never use it to her. So I don't know. I don't think he needs help. There's no question he needs therapy. But I don't know.
Before she quits her job and ups and leaves with him, he should go through that therapy.
A job she doesn't want. She wants to leave.
Doesn't matter. It's a job. It's an income. You don't give up the security you have for a psycho.
Well, this was...
And until
she doesn't consider him a psycho.
She should.
And she wants to give up that job. So not everybody loves their job, George.
It's their dream, her dream forever. And the fact that he is committing is so unusual for those guys, that even with his emotional abusiveness, it's all, I went with it because it's such a relative situation. I mean, it's miserable, the townies. I mean, this even, like, life seems so much of a dream in comparison. And the fact that so many of these guys just come, bang them, leave. And the fact that he did that is quite a plus, that, like, especially for the time, you're like, emotional abuse possibility. He's like a little bit crazy, but my God, he showed up.
Yeah.
Believe me, having been with, like, relationships and men, I mean, suddenly little things that you're like, if there's a statement and a show of some commitment, you're kind of, you know, I can take a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you reminded me of, like, in terms of endearment, when Jack Nicholson shows up to help Shirley MacLaine during her daughter's illness, and she's shocked that he's there, and she's like, well, who would have thought you would be a nice guy?
Oh, but I know, it's also maybe we have very low expectations for guys, which is good for you all. Like, just do a little something, and you're like just amazing. It's, you know. Plus,
I'll try and remember that.
Plus, it's like, of course, you never want to see these couples in these, like, incredible love fantasy moments at the end of film. And, you know, it would just be amazing to see them a few months, years down the line, and just how they're screaming at each other. Like, if Jack...
Yeah, I don't want to see...
Yeah, if Jack lived, like, in Titanic, and then she's, like, they're so annoyed with each other, and he's like, are you doing that story about the raft again?
Yeah, you do. This is why I'm not a big fan of sequels. I'm happy when the film ends and that's it. That's their story. I don't want to know what happens to them after that. That's why I hate all these reboots of TV shows. When the show's ended, it's gone. I don't want to revisit these characters. It's fine. I like them where they left them.
So getting back on track, for the record, I do think this works. I had to give it my best shot at cutting the legs out of it because you two were just fawning over it so hard.
I never do this.
Somebody had...
Yes, you had to do it.
Somebody had to push back with whatever I had, and that's what I found to push back with. So, yeah, no, it still works. It was well written. It's cliche, but that's fine. Cliches have to have origins.
And Joe, you know I'm pretty cynical. I'll, like, go off and hate and, like, everything. I'm saying, like, this is, like, not that usual. That I'm just like, it's all wonderful. God, was it magic? And, like, who am I? like, I'm taking over.
I'd say the nice thing about doing this podcast is I'm revisiting a bunch of films, and some of which I'm shocked that I avoided, and then I got to see them. I go, oh, wait a minute, why did I hate this? Why did I avoid seeing this movie? It's great. Like Ghost, I was surprised I really liked. Dirty Dancing, I was shocked that I really liked.
Happy Gilmore.
I'm not shocked that I like this guy. I've seen this before, but I'm shocked that it still emotionally connects to me. I mean, I'm tearing up. I'm never doing that.
It's so fun. I know. I mean, it was, it is the romantic
Does the film
movie.
have problems? Sure. Is Lou Gott's character a bit much? Yes. Although, I have to be honest, I laughed at that scene.
When he gets kicked in the nuts?
No, I laughed at the very beginning when we first see Lou Gott, and he's telling, like, oh, what'd you call me, boy? And all this.
Oh, yeah. The script. The scripted script for drill instructors. Because I'm pretty sure the Steers and Queers thing also was used in Full Metal Jacket, which did come after this movie.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
So Kubrick stole it from
but I didn't see
this.
Full Metal Jacket.
I had a great up and downs. As far as script writing, as far as, like, it came up, and then, like, the down as far as his almost DOR'd, and then, up, and then it goes down with the suicide. It was just, everyone's, like, gives Chinatown, like, in screenwriting, and I'm like, this is, I don't know what's taking me over. Is the medication working? Like, I finally got a good antidepressant cocktail because I'm like, I just love this thing. And I wanted to mention something which is kind of interesting. They apparently screen tested this.
Uh-huh.
And Louis Gossett Jr.'s character was way more brutal.
Oh.
There wasn't, like, apparently, and they went back and redid to make him softer and compare, where there was more of a connection, and they adjusted based upon what the reaction, which is kind of interesting.
In all fairness to the screenwriter, this is based on his experience because he was in this program. So It's entirely possible that that's the way the real sergeants really did talk to them. That's something he made up. They straight up would say the most homophobic thing. Like I'm sure they did. I have no doubt that's what happened.
Yeah, very interesting. I didn't know that. And it's not like this guy, I forget his name again now, but it's not like he's written tons of things as far as I know, as far as he didn't go on and write a ton more movies.
Well, some other things that we mentioned, some of the stuff I've seen of his.
All right. So you two both think this works, and I think it works.
We both think it works.
All right. So.
And you do too.
Yep. So Hillary, thank you for coming on.
Oh, this was great. Thank you for having me. It was really
What do you got
fun.
to plug? Plug something.
Oh, check out my YouTube. I have a lot of videos up there. YouTube Hillary 1LES. So I'm gonna go ahead and check me out. I do stand up, but I mean, I don't have any big. Rachel and I are going to do some show out in Jersey City pretty soon. That's this place, Smush Gallery. Smush Gallery. We've been trying to do it a little more regularly, and it's really fun. And we bribe people. We give wine and stuff. So we're going to bribe you to come.
I live here.
Yes, in Jersey City, Summit. Is it Summit Avenue? Yeah. So I don't know. And
I live on Bergen Avenue. It's like right down the freaking road.
Right. And I've been doing a lot of.
You got one audience member at least.
Yep.
I guess that's all I have to plug. I've been busy trying to do some writing. That's why I was talking about the writing and this. So I'm still existing in life,
We noticed.
But that's what I'd say right now.
Okay.
I'm like,
alrighty.
It's hard to be this successful.
So, George, what's up next?
Our next episode won't be next week. We lost a couple of weeks last year due to travel and family stuff, so we're skipping this coming 5th week and the one in May to catch up. Sorry, folks. The next episode will drop on February 7th for the general public and February 6th for patrons, and we don't know what the movie will be because our patrons vote on them and that vote hasn't been finalized yet. If you want to vote but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
So I guess that's it for this episode. Again, thank you, Hillary, for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Joe Dixon, and thanks for listening, everybody.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
I don't know, but it's been said.
I don't know, but it's been said.
Air Force wings are made of lead.
Air Force wings are made of lead.
Left, right, right. Come on, right. Huh. I don't know, but I've been told.
I don't know, but I've been told.
Navy wings are made of gold.
Navy wings are made of gold.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Was true for you when you were servicing. When you were in the service. And when you were servicing the entire Navy. Do that again, Joe. When you were in the service. But first,
what's one thing on your bucket list?
What meal would you always eat no matter how broke you are?
How do you deal with the loneliness when it hits?
What is a song that was scary to you as a child? How soon after shaking someone's hand do you then wash your hands?